reading. We need to understand this Torah portion reading from us understanding what is being given here. And I think this is where a lot of us miss it. A lot of us miss it. Because it starts in Genesis chapter 2. He lifted, in Genesis 18 verses 2, he lifted up his eyes and looked and saw 3 men standing opposite him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the ground. Now imagine, these are 3 foreign people. He doesn't even know them. He doesn't even know who they are. They're 3 foreigners coming in. Yet he bows himself. He goes low and he's willing to worship them. He's willing to bow low. And said, Yahuwah, if I had found favor in your eyes, please do not pass your servant by. Please let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourself under the tree. Now when I heard this, and the father said, are you doing what I did? Because this is what Abraham did. Abraham went and washed foreigners' people's feet. They weren't even believers. They weren't even his friends. They weren't even anybody he knew. They were total foreigners that came. And what did he do? He washed their feet. Now, are we willing to wash each other's feet? Are we willing to humble ourselves? Are we willing to lay our pride down? Are we willing to do that? No. Because the Father spoke to me something yesterday very interesting about Adam in the garden. And we are going to see 2 things. We fall by 2 things. We fall out of fear and we fall out of pride. It's the 2 things that we fall. We fall into sin through 2 things. Pride and fear. And we are going to see these 2 things in this Torah portion reading. So when we look at this, the Father then said, go to John chapter 13. And this is our Messiah, which is our example. There's no example that we have more than Messiah Yahushua. Messiah Yahushua came to be fullness of Torah in the flesh. And if we do not have Messiah Yahushua as fullness of Torah in the flesh, we are going to become legalistic, arrogant, and proud. That's what we will have. And he said to his disciples, from verse 5, so this is when Yahushua is before the festival of Pesach, knowing that his hour had come and that he should move us. So we look at John chapter 13 from verse 1. Knowing that his hour had come and that he should move out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. And supper taking place, the devil having already put into the heart of Yehudah from Corinth, son of Shimon, to deliver him up. Yahushua, knowing that the Father had given all into his hands, and that he had come from Eluah and was going to Eluah, rose from supper and laid aside his garments, and having taken a towel, he girded himself. This is our Messiah. Our Messiah took off his gown, took a towel, and now what does he do? After that, he put water in a basin and began to wash the feet of his taught ones, and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. And he came to Shimon Kepha, and he said to him, Master, do you wash my feet? Yahushua answered and said to him, you do not know what I am doing now, but you shall know after this. And Kepha said to him, by no means shall you wash my feet ever. Yahushua answered him, if I do not wash you, you have no part in me. So you see, if Yahushua did not wash the feet of the disciples, then he would have had no part in Yahushua. Why? Because Yahushua was going to teach us something very important in this lesson. And interesting, this is at Pesach time, just before Pesach, because Yahushua becomes our Passover lamb. And just as Abraham is seeing these angels, it could have just been before Passover too. Because by the time they get to Lot, Passover is taking place. And he says, and Yahushua said to him, he who has a bath does not need to wash, except his feet, but is clean altogether. But you are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would deliver him up. So he said, you are not all clean. So when he had washed their feet and taken his garments and sat down again, he said to them, do you know what I have done to you. You call me teacher and master, and you say, well, for I am. Then if I, master and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I gave you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is an emissary greater than than he who sent him. So you see, we are not greater than our master Yeshua. And why did Yeshua do this? That's why he said to Peter, if I don't do this, you have no part in me. And that is why he was going to teach us what it means to be a servant. He's going to teach us what it means to love one another. He's going to teach us what it means to lay down your life for another. He's going to teach us that if you do not humble yourself, humble your pride, humble your arrogance, humble the I that is there, that exalts itself, you are not going to be able to have any part in him. Because what was it that Abba hates? Abba hates the proud, but he humbles. He gives humble to the lowly. He blesses the lowly. And so if we look now in verses 33, from 33 to 38, he says, little children, yet a little while I am with you. You shall seek me. As I said to the Yehudim, where I am going, you are unable to come. I now also say to you, a renewed command I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. That you also love one another. Do you see? Just like what you said now, Marinda. No greater love is there than for us to lay down one life for another. Because that is the fullness of Torah. The fullness of Torah lands on two commands, which is exactly what Marinda said. Love Abba Yahuwah with all your heart. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. By this shall all know that you are my disciples, my taught ones, if you have love one for another. But you see, we can only love one another when we lay down our pride. When pride is no longer there, then it's easy to love the other. But when pride raises up, then I don't want to show you love anymore, because now I am on the throne. And that is a constant breaking down of character. That is a constant going low. That is a constant saying, Father, even though this is going to be so difficult in my flesh right now, but you know what? I am going to go low so that you can be exalted. But this is not what we do. Because at the end of the day, we are still on our throne. Because why? It's about my thing. It's about my world. It's about my family. It's about my possessions. It's about me being on a throne. And the Father doesn't want that. He says, how are the people outside going to know that you have loved one for another? How are they going to see that you're my disciple? How are they going to see that? When you have loved one for another, when you're prepared to lay down your life for another one, when you're prepared that even if it's going to cost you in your flesh, even if it means that you must go without so that that person can go with that, that's what you're going to do. And if there is someone who is hurting, what do? The Bible says, do not come and offer me your sacrifice at the altar, knowing that your brother is holding something against you. That's what my Bible tells me. And that is what he spoke to me last night when I was sitting there at that communion table. That's why I sat at that communion table and there were tears running down my face when the Father said to me, how do you come and offer me a sacrifice of your worship, knowing your brother's holding something against you? And that is why we can preach, but we need to walk. We need to live. We need to humble. And this is when he showed me this, tied in with Abraham. Why was Abraham such a man that was so humble? Because he bowed low. Because these were strangers. He didn't even know them, but he went and washed their feet. And what does he do? Abraham ran into the tent to Sarah and said, hurry, make ready 3 measures of fine flour kneaded and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hurried to prepare it. And he took curds and milk and calf which he had prepared, and set it before them, and stood by them under the tree as they ate. Now, this is one of the things that's from this scripture over here, because they drank curdled milk and they ate the meat. And this is one of the scriptures that I always go back to when the Jews don't mix meat and milk. The Jews don't mix meat and milk, not at all. You know, in Israel, if you go sit in a place and you come with, I remember the one time we were sitting in a meat place and someone had gone to, I think it was my friend had gone to order coffee. And she came and she brought the coffee. They went ballistic. This is a kosher place. I looked, I didn't even know what was going on. Meantime, it was because now they had coffee with milk sitting at a table where we were eating meat. And it's not allowed. You're not even allowed to sit at the same table. My friend moaned at me just because I went and ate yogurt in a plate that was used for meat. And you see, she does that with her cutlery and her crockery, but has got no problem to go wash her car on the Shabbat. And this is where I'm saying, we can become so religious in our ways. And yet at the end of the day, I can keep one thing that is a man-made custom and tradition. But the Torah of Yahuwah I'm not willing to keep. But you know what? When she said that to me, I just had to bite my tongue, because I thought to myself, oh Father, give me the grace, because right now I want to rebuke her from here to thy kingdom come. But the Father said love. And I lived for 2 years with these people that were my friends, that never kept Torah. They would invite me to coffee shops and everything on the time of Torah, but they would light their candles and they would worry about what they're going to, separating meat from milk and all of this in their houses. And the Father said to me, you will not preach to them. You will live and you will love them. And many months later, that same friend of mine was going to go out. The daughter phoned her and said to her, we're going to go to, some other place. And she said, no, I'm not going to go, because this is the Sabbath, and the Sabbath I'm to be able to stay here. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to be in His Word. And the one day we were sitting there and the car was all dirty, and we were sitting in the car and it was a Friday afternoon, and Elsie had gone to just go and get us something to eat before the shops and everything closed, and she said, oh, this car's so dirty. Tomorrow I need to go and have this car washed, and this is Friday afternoon. And she turns around and she says, oh, neither your maidservants, nor your menservants, nor your animals shall work on the Shabbat. I said, praise you, Abba. She got the revelation. But what did I have to do? I had to love her. I wasn't there to preach to her. I had to love her. Because that's what the Father said. You are going to wash her feet. You are going to go low. I wanted to, half the time, how difficult it was for me, because I wanted to tell her where to get off, and I couldn't. Because the Father had said to me, you will be an example. You will love, and you will not preach to them. Then eventually they would know that I wouldn't do those things on the Shabbat. Eventually they knew. And eventually Father started to speak with them, because I started to pray. And the more I started to pray, and the more I started to live my life, myself, my husband, Elsie, we lived what we believed in the Scripture. They were starting to change. And so we go look in Genesis 8 verses 14. When he turns around and he says, now in this we see how he's going to talk to Sarah, and he's going to talk to Abraham, and he's going to say, you're going to bear a son. And he's talking and he says, where is Sarah now? This is the matter that I want to speak about over here as well, because it says, is any matter too hard? Because he says in verses 13, and Yahuwah said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I truly have a child since I am old? Is any matter too hard for Yahuwah? At the appointed time, I'm going to return to you according to the time of life. And Sarah is to have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh. But just earlier we heard that she did laugh. Now, is that not what we do with the Father? Is that not what we do with people? When people confront us with our sin, what's the first thing that we do? We lie. And we make excuses. To say, but I didn't do that. They are to blame. I'm not to blame. I didn't do that. So, for she was afraid. So do you see how many times, because of fear of man, we will offend the Father? Because of fear of not being able to, because we fear man, we will offend the Father. Now, she's standing before the very Creator. She's standing before Yeshua himself. And she's saying, I didn't laugh. But he heard her laugh. But why? Because she was afraid. So remember what I said to you. The two sins that we do is we lie because of fear. So we break commands because of fear. And who do we fear? We fear man. And we don't fear the Father. And it's like Carol has been saying for so long. We will rather offend the Father than offend man. Because we don't want to offend man. But we will offend the Father. We don't have a problem in offending the Father. But we will not offend man. And then the Father took me back to reminding me of the Garden of Eden. And he said, Natalia, look and see. There was Eve in the garden. The serpent had come to Eve and told her to be able to eat from this fruit. I have you know that Adam was right next to her. Adam wasn't running around somewhere. Her husband was right next to her. He could have turned around and said to her, no, don't eat it. Why does she give him the fruit and he eats with her? Pride, because there was a lie that he had told her that she was not to even touch it. If she was to touch it, she would surely die. Now he stands there, she's picked this fruit, she hasn't died, she's giving it to the husband, and he's too prideful, which is what he showed me. Abba showed me, says, he was too prideful to actually turn around and say, look, my wife, I was wrong. I was wrong. I know I told you that you shouldn't touch it. It wasn't that you shouldn't touch it, it was that you shouldn't eat it. And because of his pride, he ate that fruit. So do you see what we do when pride comes in? When pride comes in, we sin. And we're not willing to humble. Because that's what pride does. Pride makes us arrogant. Because we're not willing to humble. And he says, so it's fear and it's pride. Because at the end of the day, because of pride, Adam did not say to her, no. And I have realized that especially when it comes to men in general, pride is a big problem. Because it's got to do with ego. Women don't have as much of a problem with it as what men do. Women have a problem with pride too. There's no doubt about that. But a man, because it was already the sin upon Adam. Remember, Adam carried the biggest sin because Adam knew the truth. And because Adam knew the truth, he was the one that was supposed to have covered Eve and said, do not eat that. But because of pride, he did not. And then he blamed the wife. And then the wife blamed the serpent. And we know how the story goes. So when we go to Genesis 18, from verses 23 to 32. So Abraham draws near and he talks about if there be any righteous in this land. Now do you see, are we into true intercession? Because Abraham was interceding. Abraham was interceding for the city of Sodom and Gomorrah because of Lot. Because he knew Lot lived there. And he knew the angels were on their way to destroy it. And this is what the Father is doing right now. He's raising up the intercessors that are interceding on behalf of the Father and saying, Father, please have mercy. But there comes a time that when he says, I can't even find 10 righteous. He started with 50 and went right down to 10. And he says, if I can't even find 10 righteous in the land, I'm going to destroy it. And I think the Father has been so merciful for so many years. Because there's been so many people interceding. And the Father's been merciful, but there comes a time when he says, now judgment is going to have to come. And that's why we're really going to look at Genesis chapter 19. And we need to look at Genesis chapter 19 for us to really understand where we're going to be in this very day and age and what's going to knock on our doorstep. And the two messengers came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot, and sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when Lot saw them, he rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face towards the ground, and he said, Look, please, my masters, please, turn into your servant's house and spend the night, and wash your feet, and rise early and go your way. Now look, Lot was also prepared to wash their feet. They just arrived at Lot, and Lot once again is willing to bow low and is willing to humble and wash their feet. And they said, No, but let us spend the night in the open square. But he urged them strongly, and they turned into him and came into his house. And he made them a feast and baked them unleavened bread, and they ate. And before they lay down, the men of the city and the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every part surrounded the house. And they called to Lot and said to him, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us and let us know them. Do you see the wickedness? Do you see the Sodom and Gomorrah? And what is the decree that's just been published by the Pope? The Pope has just issued a decree to say that now same-sex marriages are allowed to take place, and now you're not even allowed to be a minister of the word. If you are a ordained pastor, you will not be allowed to not marry two men. Even yesterday, Elsie showed me something that even in the Orthodox Judaism, the rabbis now, in Orthodox Judaism, the rabbis now are marrying same-sex marriages. So are we not in the very hour of what it was in Sodom and Gomorrah right now? Because this decree has come out, and the thing is that no sooner did that decree come out, that Sunday our president issued a decree to say that it's a law in our country now that you are having to marry same-sex marriages. It's a law gazetted in our nation.
And Natalie, I would tested and asked twice to marry two guys and two women three times. And I had to very carefully come up with a very good reason why not marry.
And now imagine, now it's gazetted in law to say that if you don't, they can actually put you in jail.
Yeah.
Now imagine the test that's going to have to come for those who truly preach the word. Can you imagine? This is now when the rubber's going to hit the tar and the persecution's going to start.
They even take your marriage license away.
Exactly. So it's a case of saying, okay, I can have this license taken away, or otherwise you can be thrown in jail. One of the two. But the persecution is now going to come. Because this is exactly the time that we are in now. And that is why, do you understand how we are in the time exactly now of a Sodom and Gomorrah? This thing has just been released, and now what are we going to have? Judgment. Because now you are going to embrace it. Don't worry. Father's going to judge just like he judged Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot went out to them through the doorway and shut the door behind them and said, Please, my brothers, do not do evil. Look, please, I have two daughters who have not known a man. Please, let me bring them out to you and do to them as you wish. Only do not do no deed to these men, because they have come under the shadow of my roof. But they said, Stand back. And they said, This one came in as a sojourn, and should he always judge. Now we are going to treat you worse than them. So you see, those that try and preach truth, they will always come under to say by those others, but don't judge us. What do these people say that are gays? What's the first thing that they say to you? Don't judge us. Isn't that what they say? These homosexuals, the first thing that they say is, don't judge us, you're supposed to love. It's not me that judges, the word has already judged you.
But the same with the word in the Torah, what will the people say? Judge me. But if you read then in John 30,
we are called to judge righteously according to the word. And the Father says in Isaiah chapter 1, He's going to raise up His judges in the last days. And they will judge according to His word. That He will.
John 12 says, I come as a light into the world, so that no one who believes in me should stay in darkness. If anyone hears my word, but does not watch over them, I do not judge for him.
That's right.
For I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. But then it says,
Yeah.
He who rejects me and does not receive my words has one who judges
That's right.
him. The word that I have spoken shall judge him in the
Exactly.
last days.
That's exactly what it is.
He said, because I spoke not from myself, but the Father who sent me has given
Amen.
me a command, what I should say and what I should speak.
Amen.
And I know that His commandment is everlasting. Therefore, whatever I speak, as the Father has said to me, I shall speak.
Amen. So you see, at the end of the day, that's why he says, it's not I that's going to judge you. Remember, he came as a lamb to the slaughter. He didn't come to judge the world, he came to save the world. But when he comes again, he comes as the righteous judge, as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Who is the one who's going to judge? And he says, and you will be judged because of the word that was already given. You will have no excuse when you stand before him then, because he's already brought the word. Because now is the time of repentance. Now is the time of the knee bowing and to repent. Now is the hour. Because when we stand before him, we will stand and we'll have no excuse. Because the word would have already gone forth. Exactly like what Cobus read now. So, we look here when he says, for we are going to, verse 13, for we are going to destroy this place, because the cry against them has grown great before the face of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah has sent us to destroy it. Now imagine the cry of the oppressed, imagine the cry of those babies, imagine the cry of the people going through things at the moment in this world before the Father. Just on the aborted babies. Imagine the cry before the Father, just on the aborted babies.
Sorry for jumping. You know how they abort the baby. They don't take the baby out. They rip it apart.
That's right.
With tongs. They grab whatever they can grab.
That's right. And now they have actually allowed you to be able to abort a baby up to 9 months. You are allowed to abort it right up to 9 months. You are allowed to abort a baby. So now can you imagine the cry that's come before the Father just on behalf of those unborn babies? I'm not even talking about the rest of the crime on the earth. How many aborted babies on a daily basis throughout the nations of the world? So do you want to tell me he's going to keep standing back and saying, I can continue and just allow them to carry on? No. Wickedness cannot carry on the way that it is. Imagine the cry of the mothers whose children are being destroyed by all the things upon this earth that is taking them into destruction, with the drugs, with the sexual immorality, with everything, the cries that are going out. Imagine the innocent dying on the roads because of the accidents of everything, because of drunken driving, because of everything. The innocent are dying. The righteous are dying with the unjust. And this is going out to the heavens, to the Father. And how long before he's finally going to judge? And it came to be that when they brought them outside, they said, escape for your life, verse 17, escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed. So exactly like what Cobus told us earlier. What does the angel say to them? Run for your lives. Don't even look back. What did Yeshua say? Go to the mountains. Run. Do not go back and fetch anything. Run and go to the mountains. But if we are still going to be attached to the things of this world, what is going to happen? And Lot said to them, Oh no, Yahuwah, look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your loving commitment, which you have shown me by saving my life. And I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I die. You see, instead of us following instruction, of the first instruction the Father gives us, what do? We reason with him. Look, please, this city is near. You see, Lot still did not have the city out of him. Now, is that not going to be people that is going to say, okay, look, we don't have to go to the mountains. This is just a little bit outside the city there, so it's not too far, so let's go there. Let's not go totally out. Let's still stay near the city, yeah. And the Father is saying, he told the angels to tell them, flee to the mountains. because that's where you're going to be safe. But instead they said, look, please, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Please let me escape there. It is not a small matter, and let my life be saved. So you see, we will still in that hour want to reason with the Father and not go to where we're supposed to go. And this be a warning to us today, that the first instruction that he tells us, that's why the greatest command is Shema. Hear and obey. What is the greatest command? Hear and obey. If he tells you flee to the mountains, don't go and sit and try and still make your own plan. And he said to him, look, I have favored you concerning this matter also without overthrowing the city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do any deed until you arrive there. So the name of the city called Seor. The sun has risen upon the earth when Lot entered Seor. And Yahuwah rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from Yahuwah out of the heavens. So he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him and she became a post of salt. Now if he gave instruction to say don't look back, and Yahushua gave instruction to say don't go back and fetch anything, if we are going to go back, we will lose our lives. And that is why the Father is saying, be ready. And that is why the Father is saying, prepare. So that day do not take you by surprise. And that is why the Father is saying, make sure you got everything in order. Because at the end of the day, when He says to you, pack your bag, you need to go. There's no time to go back for anything. Because the enemy is going to be on our doorstep. I mean, imagine in the time of the Israelites, the Pharaoh was still, he has just buried, his son has just died. And now the Father said to the Israelites, you must go. And they had to go quickly. Because straight after that, the Pharaoh changed his mind and then came with his army to be able to come after them. Now imagine the one who decided he's still going to go back and get a few things. He wasn't going to make it. The army was going to take them out. In the time with the Pharaoh in Egypt. And so his wife looks back and let this be as an example for us. What is it that in this world we're still wanting to hold on to? To me, I saw her as this person that is not willing to let go of the things of the world that I'm still attached to. I'm still attached to many things that this world has to offer me. I'm still attached to the things that I've got here. If the Father says to you, go, and your child isn't even there, you are going to have to understand you're going to have to go. And this is going to be a difficult one, and I know I speak even to myself over here, because my children are not with me at the moment. And if the Father says to me, go, I'm going to have to go. Because I cannot look back. And Yahuwah reigned, but his wife looked back, and Abraham rose early in the morning, and he went to the place where he had stood before Yahuwah, and he looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and towards all the land of the plain. And he looked, and he saw the smoke of the land, which went up like the smoke of a furnace. Thus it came to be when Yahuwah destroyed the cities of the plain, and Yahuwah remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of and when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. And Lot went out of Seor and dwelt in the mountains. Now you see, finally he gets the revelation. I wasn't supposed to go here. I was supposed to go to the mountains. So you see, why did he run to the city? He should have just obeyed the instructions, first of all, to go to the mountains. And the firstborn, now here's when we're going to see evil. And the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there is no man, no earth to come in to us, as is the way of all the earth. So once again, fear grips the heart now of the two daughters of Lot. There's no man, but you've just come from Seor. You've just seen that there was living people there. But now, the same Father that saved them is the same one that's going to be able to go before them. But what do they do? Once again, we see the evil of wine, just like with Noah. That's it. Come, let us make our father drink wine and lie with him, so that we preserve the seed of our father. So once again, wine comes into a very bad light here. because of the wine. Just like Noah, because of wine, there came a bloodline that came out of Ham, that was Canaan, that was cursed. Now look and see. Out of the father, out of Lot, comes two bloodlines that's going to still today be a thorn in Israel's side. And so they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with his father, and he was not aware of it. And when she lay down, or when she arose, and it came to be that on the next day, that the firstborn said to the younger, see, I lay with my father that last night. Let us make him drink wine together as well, and you go in and lie with the father so that we keep the seed of our father. Now I want you to see this. I want you to understand something very clearly. Do you remember Lot separated from Noah? Now Noah would have had Torah, which means Noah would have known you're not to sleep with your father, you're not to sleep with your mother, not with Noah, with Abraham. You are not to sleep with your father, you are not to sleep with your mother. They would have known things like that because they were given Torah. But what did he do? He went into the city. He went into the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. And he came away from being able to be under that influence of understanding and knowing Torah. That instead he came into the city and came to know the ways of the city life. And the daughters were taken in and influenced by the ways of the city life. And that is why train up a child in the way that he's to go in the word, so that he may never depart from it. Because if we train up our children, they should be able to know. Now, this is when it came to me, when I realized, my goodness, did they not know? I'm sure they would have been given Abraham. It says Abraham was a righteous man, because why? He knew Abba's Torah. Abba was teaching him his Torah. But yet, these two daughters go. So how much was Lot listening? Lot was dwelling in Abraham's tents, but was Lot learning from Abraham? Or was Lot only there to be able to get rich himself and then be able to move into the city?
But the thing is, that's where Psalm 1 comes in. They will not sit in the seat of
exactly.
So you visit people doing the wrong.
You're not to partake.
Getting used to the wrong.
That's right.
Then you will partake of
That's
the
right.
wrong.
That's right.
Why it's very, very, very scary to mix with the wrong thing.
Exactly. That's why we need to be set apart. That's why the Father's telling us to be set apart. Because, his daughters had gone and got mixed. Because where were the two husbands? Where were the two fiancés? When they ran, they were betrothed. They had fiancés because he told them, no, I've got my son-in-laws. Where were they? They stayed. They didn't run out with them, which means they were taken already by the things of the city. And already now, these girls, instead of Lot having gone and got son-in-laws from his relative Abraham and from Abraham's people, he goes and gets people that comes from the cities. That's why he says you're not to be able to be unequally yoked to a non-believer, because this is what's going to come. So those girls were already wicked in their hearts. And so we look and see in verses 37, the firstborn bore a son called Moab, and the younger bore a son called Ammon. And that makes up Jordan today. Ammon and Moab. And if we go and look in the book of Obadiah, there is no blessing for them. Father's going to destroy Moab and Father's going to destroy Ammon. There's no blessing. Because once again, just like he cursed Canaan, and the land of Canaan was given to the righteous remnant of Abraham, from Noah's seed, from Shem's seed, Abraham comes. 10 generations down from Noah comes Abraham, from the bloodline of Shem. And he gives him Canaan, which he says they will be your servants. So yeah, we're going to now look at Genesis chapter 20, verse 2. And Abraham says concerning Sarah, his wife, she's my sister. And Abimelech, sovereign of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. Now this one really amazed me, the whole of chapter 20. Because now in chapter 20, now imagine this. Now we must put ourselves in this place. By this time, the father has appeared. Yeshua himself has appeared to Abraham. Told him Sarah's going to fall pregnant and bear his child. Told him he's going to be a father. And he goes into he goes into the grounds of Abimelech. And once again lies, just like he did in Egypt, and tells them that Sarah's his sister. It's not a full lie, it's a little white lie. She is his sister, half sister. But what gets him to do that? Fear. Because if we look in Genesis 20 verse 11, and Abraham said, only because I said to myself, the fear of the Lord is not in this place, and they shall kill me for the sake of my wife. So once again, because he fears losing his life, and the fact that he says the fear of Yahuwah was not there, well, if he feared Yahuwah, he would not have lied. So do we fear Yahuwah above fearing man? We don't. Because we will do fleshly things because we fear man above fearing Yahuwah. And this is a man, and we need to guard ourselves, because you know what, when I read this, I said, Father, there is such a danger here, because here is Moses, who stood and was given the Torah on Mount Sinai. Moses who saw him in the burning bush. Moses who spoke with him face to face on the mountain. And he didn't fear the Father to strike that rock when the Father told him to speak to the rock. And because of that, he never entered the promised land. And so, this is when I get the fear of Yahuwah that comes in me to make me realize it doesn't matter how the Father uses me. It doesn't matter what the Father does with me. At the end of the day, I don't know how I'm going to behave in that very moment. When the destruction comes, how am I going to behave? Do I have enough of an intimacy relationship with Him? Because we will see, this is Abraham still in the beginning of his walk with the Father. And by this time, he's still falling in his flesh. And that is why I love the story of Abraham. Because it makes room for all of us. Because in our journey with the Father, we still fall and we still make mistakes. But praise the Father, because He's still fearing man above fearing the Father. And he lies about Sarai. He lies about Sarah. But then we see that eventually Sarah does bear a child. And he sees Abba. And he sees the promise that Abba had given him come into fulfillment. And that is why when we get to Genesis chapter 21, and we start to see that now Sarah does bear a child, and Abraham becomes the father of this promised inheritance that he was already promised, as far as the stars of the heaven and the sands of the sands of the ground, you will have an inheritance. And Abraham sees this come into fulfillment. And so, this is when he starts to see that the Father is real. And then I have to talk about, just in Genesis 20 verse 4, Abraham circumcises his son, Yitzhak, when he was 8 days old, as Elohim had commanded him. Because the circumcision was the sign of the covenant. Now I know, Kobus had spoken about the circumcision last week, and I still wanted to speak about it. And the Father said, leave it for the next Torah portion. Now, do you know why circumcision was the sign that was given? Because in that day, in that time, the seed of the children of Molech and all the gods that they served, whether it was the Egyptians, whether it was the Canaanites, they would offer their seed on an altar to burn. And they would actually offer their, you know, when a man's seed comes out, when they ejaculate and the seed comes forth, part of the worship of their gods had to do with sexual, orgies. And there would be all the sexual orgies going on, and the seed would be spilt in their worship of their gods. So when the Father brought the circumcision, it was, you will remove the foreskin so that from now on, the seed that will be your seed will be my seed that will be offered to me, and not a seed that is offered to other gods. And that's something that a lot of people do not know. So circumcision is not just a thing that it was part of the covenant itself. Why did the Father make that covenant? Because the seed of man, the seed of a man, was being used as an offering to other gods. And the Father wanted that seed now to say, from now on, when you circumcise your child, that seed that comes forth from that child will be a seed unto me and to the worship of me, and not for other gods. And so circumcision is so important because it's not just the sign of the covenant, but it's from the time that you are circumcised. That seed that comes forth from your circumcision is a seed that's offered unto Abba Yahuwah. Because you see, it's the enemy's trying to steal the seed. Because the seed has been offered to other gods. But when you come into covenant with Abba Yahuwah, and when a boy goes and becomes circumcised, that seed from then on becomes a seed that's to be offered to the Father once they come into covenant with Him. But this is something that's not known. So that is why the Father doesn't take it very lightly. Look and see. Remember Tamar, when her husband came and he removed himself out of her and the seed fell to the ground. He saw it as evil and he killed him straight away. Why? Why did he do that? I've often asked why. How could he do something like that? Because that was spilled seed. And that was always the spilled seed that was being used to be able to be given for other gods. And the Father did not want that. And you see, we don't always understand. But when we have the revelation of the truth of things, then we understand why Father does what He does. He doesn't always tell you why you are to do it. He gives you the command, He expects you to do it, and then He gives you the revelation later. That's the way it can be. So, many of us, we didn't really understand these things. But now, as we start to walk in Torah, we start to have the revelation of the truth. So, in 21, verses 9, and Sarah saw the son of Hagar and the Mitzrayim, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking. So she said to Abraham, drive out this female servant and her son, for the son of this female servant shall not inherit with my son, with Yitzhak. And the matter was very evil in the eyes of Abraham because of his son. So sometimes the man doesn't always listen to a wife. But I don't blame him. But who should he take the matter to? Back to the father. If the wife sometimes says something to the husband and the husband rebels against it, just go back to the father, because many times that wife has been put there as a helper to help you.
But I told Carol, I understand that we must listen, but now I've learned a new thing. Don't mock me because then you're on the road.
Oh my goodness. Oh. But Elua said to Abraham, okay, so here we go, and now we continue to read verse 9. And Yahuwah said to Abraham, let it not be evil in your eyes because of the boy and because of your female servant, whether Sarah has said to you, whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice, for in Yitzhak your seed is called. So many times the father puts a wife there as a helper. And you might not see the situation like that, but she's there to help you to be able to see it from a different perspective. And many times she does carry the heart of the Father. If she's a godly woman, her heart is to be able to help you. If she's a woman who serves Abba Yahuwah, she would never want to do you evil. A godly woman, a righteous woman, a righteous wife would never want to do her husband harm. Never. She will always want to be able to lift him up and do him good. But sometimes the man doesn't always listen because it's that thought, that's a pride that can sometimes come up to say, who are you to tell me what to do? And it's not that we want to tell you what to do, it's just that sometimes we understand others' heart from another place that a man doesn't always understand. So that is why I encourage husbands and wives to be able to just be respectful in this area. If your wife is saying something to a man that doesn't make sense, that to you immediately going to get offended, just understand she would never want to do you harm. But if she's speaking something that's totally out of line, then you don't need to listen. Not at all. And if she's going to tell you something that's going to be that you're going to have to do this or go there or whatever, you have to still hear from the Father because you are the head of the home. And you need to hear from the Father. And Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, which he gave to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and also the boy, and sent her away. And she left and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And then verse 16, she went and sat down about a bow shot away, for she said, let me not see this death of the boy. And she sat opposite him and lifted her voice and wept. And Eluah heard the voice of the boy, and the messenger of Eluah called. Now, the messenger of Eluah called to Hagar from the heavens and said to her, what is the matter with you, Hagar? Do not fear, for Eluah has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Arise, lift up the boy and hold him with your hand, for I make a great nation of him. And Eluah opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. Now, isn't it amazing? Father, in his mercy, even though he's going to take away this child, is going to take away, I keep forgetting his name. Yitzhak, it's Isaac, and Ishmael. He's going to take away Ishmael. But understand, he gives a promise and he says, he too is going to become a great nation. And isn't it interesting? She goes back to where? Eventually she goes back to Mitzrayim. Here it says, and he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Mitzrayim. And where did Hagar come from? Mitzrayim. So Hagar was one of the servants that when when Abraham came out of Egypt, the Pharaoh gave him servants and gave him wealth. And Hagar was one of the servants that went with. So she came from Mitzrayim, and she takes a wife for him from Mitzrayim. And that's why the Father says in Isaiah 19, he calls Egypt, Mitzrayim, his people. He says, Israel, my inheritance, and Mitzrayim, my people. And there is a promise for the Egyptians. And isn't it interesting how he turns around and how he says he makes of them a great nation? Where did the Father go and hide? Where did he take Joseph to? Mitzrayim. And Joseph rose up in Mitzrayim, a great nation that fed the nations of the world. And from Mitzrayim, Israel was protected. And what happens? There, Joseph marries an Egyptian woman and has 2 sons. And you see, I can almost say that those 2 sons would be from the bloodline that would come from Ishmael, that would have been from the seed of Abraham. Because the Father said, I make of them a great nation. And so we see the tribe of Manasseh and the tribe of Ephraim, both of them come from where? They come from the loins of Joseph. That comes from a mother that would have been an Egyptian woman. And so, we look in Isaiah 19 verses 25, whom Yahuwah of hosts shall bless, saying, Blessed is Mitzrayim, my people, and Ashur, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. So, Israel was his inheritance, but Mitzrayim was his people. Because why? Ishmael. And this is why we mustn't confuse that all the Arabs come from Ishmael. All the Arabs do not come from Ishmael. From the tribe of Ishmael, Ishmael goes, we'll see in the next chapter, in the next few chapters, we are going to see Ishmael then goes and he bears 12 sons, 12 princes. So just like Isaac bears, not Isaac, Jacob eventually bears 12 sons, and then from there comes the 12 tribes. So does Ishmael bear 12 sons, and from there is going to come a nation. From there is going to come a people too. So in Genesis chapter 22, and this is what's important for us to look in Genesis chapter 22, we see here how the Father now goes and tests Abraham. And, for people who think that they're not going to be tested, let's just look at Genesis 22 verse 1. And it came to be that after these events that Elohim tried, he tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. Take your son now, your only son, Yitzhak, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as an ascending offering on one of the mountains which I command you. Now imagine how difficult this is. Father's going to tell you to take your one and only son, the one whom you bore, and now you need to go and sacrifice him. Now you're going to see the difference between an Abraham who lied and said Sarah's his wife, Sarah's his sister and not his wife in Egypt, then says to Abimelech the same thing, she's my sister and not my wife, because he feared man. But you see an Abraham who becomes the father of our faith, because of the faith that he has in the Father, because of the way that he's grown with him, because of the way that he's walked with him, because he has come to see his promises, his goodness, who he is. And so Yitzhak spoke to Abraham in verse 7 and says, Father, my father, and he said, here I am, my son. And he said, see the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for an offering? For an ascending offering. And Abraham said, my son, Elohim does provide for himself the lamb for an ascending offering. And the two of them went together. Now amazing. He is seeing in the spirit ahead of time that there was going to be a lamb that was going to be Yeshua, who was going to be offered as a promise for us. And they came to the place which Elohim had commanded him, and Abraham built a slaughter place there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Yitzhak his son and laid him on the slaughter place upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took his knife to slay his son. Now, will we obey the Father to that extent? Will we obey the Father when the Father says, even your child, you are to leave and go to where I tell you. Your child, you are to offer them up on an altar for me. But do we still bow down to our children above the Father? Because many people are in that place. But the messenger of Yahuwah called to him from the heavens. Now look, that messenger is a capital M, which is Yeshua himself. The messenger of Yahuwah called to him from heaven and said, Abram, Abram. He said, here I am. And he said, do not lay your hand on the boy, nor touch him, for now I know that you fear Elohim, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And so that is why the Father is testing us in the hour that we're in. We are being weighed in the scales. We are being tested. What will we put above him? Who will we put above him? What will we put above him? We are being tried. We are being tested right now. In everything in our lives, we are being tested right now. So now we're going to look at Galatians chapter 4 that talks about this covenant that has been made, this covenant that was made with Abraham. And Galatians is a very controversial book because nobody likes to go to Galatians, because Galatians is the book that they want to use to throw at us who keep Torah, to say that, Torah has been done away with. But let's go look at Galatians 4. from verses 21 to 31 so that we may understand the fullness of Torah. Because when they want to throw Torah at you, you must understand who is the fullness of Torah. And who do they throw out if they throw out Torah? Because if they're going to throw out Torah, who do they throw out? Say to me, you who wish to be under Torah, do you not hear the Torah? For it has been written that Abraham had 2 sons, one by a female servant, the other by a free woman. But he who was of the female servant was born according to the flesh, and he of the free woman through promise. So you see, Father, when he gave us the Torah, it was never supposed to be a Torah of the flesh. It was to be a Torah of the promise, of the one who was going to be able to get us to keep Torah. Because on Mount Sinai, Abba himself wanted to write Torah on the tablets of our hearts, and not write it on tablets of stone. But he who was of the female servant was born according to the flesh, and he the free woman through the promise. This is allegorical, for these are the 2 covenants. One indeed from Mount Sinai, which brings forth slavery, which is Hagar. So this is why they say, oh no, but you're not to keep the Torah that was given on Mount Sinai because it was from the flesh, it's of Hagar. But let's listen carefully. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to Jerusalem, which now is and is in slavery with her children. But Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of all. For it has been written, rejoice, O barren, you who do not bear, break forth and shout, you who do not have birth pains, for the deserted one, has many more children than she who has a husband. And we, brothers, as Yitzhak was, are children of promise. But as he who was born according to the flesh, then persecute him born according to the Spirit, so also now. But what does the scripture say? Cast out the female servant, her son, for the son of the female servant shall by no means be heir with the son of the free woman. Therefore, brothers, we are not children of the female servant, but of the free woman. Why? Because when Abraham was there on that mountain and is given his son, he sees the promise of Yahushua, who's going to become the Torah in the flesh. And no longer are we going to be bound by the flesh and the flesh trying to be able to walk out the Torah of the flesh. But we are going to have a promise of Messiah Yeshua so that we can be able to walk in the spirit of the Torah, which is Yeshua. So if we do away with the Torah, we do away with Yeshua. Because he is the Torah made manifest in the flesh. And he's the one who's going to lead. And he's the one who's going to guide. And he's the one who's going to teach us to be able to keep this Torah according to the spirit of Yahuwah. And that's the difference that we need to understand. It's not of the flesh. It's not something that we're going to have to do of our flesh, but it's going to be of the Spirit because we are children of the Spirit. We are led by the Spirit of Yahuwah. And we are going to walk out the Torah according to the Spirit of Yahuwah. And that's why people do not understand Galatians. So they think that when they read this, it's throwing it out. But he's saying Abraham saw the promise on Mount Moriah of the one who was going to be given us, which was going to be Yeshua, which is going to be able to come in the lineage that's going to be the Torah of the Spirit. Hebrews 6:13-20. Because of this, take up the complete armor of... No, now I'm in Ephesians. Hebrews 6:13-20. For Lua, having promised Abraham, since he could swear by no one greater, swore by himself, saying, truly blessing, I shall bless you, and increase, I shall increase you. And so after being patient, he obtained the promise. For men do indeed swear by one greater in an oath of confirmation, is for them at the end of all dispute. In this way, Elua, resolving to show even more clearly to the heirs of promise the unchangeableness of his purpose, confirmed it by an oath. So that by two unchangeable matters in which it is impossible for Elua to lie, we might have strong encouragement, we who have fled for refuge, to lay hold of the expectation set before us. So there we go. He gave us Messiah Yeshua, the expectation of the promise set before us, so that now we have no excuse in order to walk out and keep Torah, which we have as an anchor of life, both safe and firm, entering into that within the veil, where Yeshua has entered as a forerunner for us, having become high priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. Praise the Father. Yeshua is the one who goes before us now, and that's why now we have no excuse to keep Torah. No excuse. So in Hebrews 11, 13 to 19, he says, and make straight paths for your feet. Hebrews 11, 13, sorry. In belief also these died, not having received the promises, but seeing them from a distance, welcomed and embraced them, and confessed that they were aliens and strangers on earth. For those who speak this way make it clear that they seek a fatherland. And yet if they had indeed kept remembering that place from which they had come out, they would have had the chance to return. But now they long for a better place, that is a heavenly. Therefore Elua is not ashamed to be called their Elua, for he has prepared a city for them. By belief Abram, when he was tried, offered up Yitzhak, and he who had received the promise offered up his only brought forth son. So just as Abraham offered up his son, so did Abba offer up his son, of whom it was said, in Yitzhak your seed shall be called, reckoning that Elua was able to arise even from the dead, from which he received him back as a type. Amen. Then we read James 2, 14 to 24, and this James 2 is very important. James 2, 14 to 24 says, my brothers, what use is it if anyone to say, my brother, what use is it for anyone to say he has belief, but does not have works? This belief is unable to save him. And if a brother or a sister is naked and in need of daily food, but one of you says to them, go in peace, be warned, and be filled, but you do not give them the bodily needs, what use is it? So also belief, if it does not have works, it is all in itself is dead. So what is he trying to tell us? So if our brother has a need, and we have the capability of providing that need, and we don't do it, what do? We sin. Because he says it's no use you just speak that you say to your brother, go in peace, be warmed and filled, but you do not give them the bodily needs. What use is it? So also belief, if it does not have works in itself, is dead. So we can speak Torah, but we need to walk Torah. We need to lay down our lives for others. So also belief, it does not have works. So you believe that Elua is one. You do well. The demons also believe and shudder. But do you wish to know, O foolish man, that the belief without the works is dead? Was not Abraham our father declared right by works when he offered Yitzhak his son on the slaughter place? So you see, we can offer the Father lip service, which is exactly what we discussed here earlier. We can offer the Father lip service and worship the Father and say, Father, I worship you, but am I willing to lay down my life? Am I willing to walk that path? Am I willing to humble? Am I willing to put myself lower than another person? Am I willing to exalt that person higher than myself? Am I willing to take my jacket off and give it to the one who doesn't have it? Even if it means it's going to cost me. Was not Abraham our father declared right by works when he offered Yitzhak his son on the slaughter place? Do you see that belief was working with his works? And by the works the belief was perfected. And the scripture was filled, which says, Abraham believed Eloah, and it was reckoned to him for righteousness. And he called him, he who loves Eloah. So he called Abraham one who loves Eloah, because he was willing to be obedient no matter what. Is that what we're willing to do? You see then that a man is declared right by works and not by belief alone. Now that is what Abba requires of us. We are not just to worship him with our lips, but we are to worship him with our lives. We are to lay down our lives for one who has a need. 2 Peter 2, and we will end with this. 2 Peter 2, 4 to 22. For if Eloah did not spare the messengers who sinned, but sent them to Tartarus and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be kept for judgment, and did not spare the world of old, but preserved Noah a proclaimer of righteousness, and 7 others bringing in the flood on the world of the wicked, and having reduced to ashes the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and condemned them to destruction, having made them an example to those who afterwards would live wickedly, and rescued righteous Lot, who was oppressed with the indecent behavior of the lawless. For day after day the righteous man dwelling among them tortured his righteous, being by seeing and hearing their lawless works. And this is where we are today. Day after day we are surrounded by lawlessness, and we are hearing. Just look and see what's going on in America at the moment just because of an election. Oh my goodness, they don't stop. It's rioting, it's fires, it's destruction just because of an election. Because man is revealing what's in their wicked hearts. And then they want to put their trust and their faith in a man that's going to lead their nation, where they're supposed to be putting their trust and their faith in the creator of the universe, not in a man. Because neither one of them are righteous before the Father. Neither one of them. Then Yahuwah knows how to rescue the reverent ones from trial, and to keep the unrighteous unto the day of judgment to be punished. So you see, the Father knows how to keep his righteous, and he's going to protect them even in this evil time. And it's important that we see this, because just as he kept Lot, and he said to Lot, flee to the mountains, and just when Yahushua warned, and he says, when you see the armies coming and surrounding the city, flee to the mountains, Yahushua said. And most of all, these walking after the flesh in filthy lusts and despising authority, bold, headstrong, speaking evil of the esteemed ones, whereas messengers who are greater in strength and power do not bring a slander, accusation against them before the master. But these, like natural unreasoning beasts, having been born to be caught and destroyed, blaspheme that which they do not know, shall be destroyed in their destruction. Being about to receive the wages of unrighteousness, deeming indulgence in the day of pleasure, spots and blemishes, reveling in their own deceptions, while they feast with him, having eyes filled with adulterous and unable to cease from sin, enticing unstable beings, having a heart trained in greed, children of a curse. So we are not to be the ones that are greedy in this land and in this nation and in this hour, greedy for gain and greedy for the things of the lusts of this world. Having left the right way, they went astray, having followed the way of Bilam, the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. But he was rebuked for his transgression. A dumb donkey, speaking with the voice of a man, restrained the madness of the prophet. These are the fountains without water, clouds driven by a storm, to whom the blackest darkness is kept forever. For speaking arrogant nonsense, they enticed through the lusts of the flesh, through indecencies, the ones having indeed escaped from those living in delusion. promising them freedom. And this is what the false prophets are doing. They're promising the people freedom, though they themselves being slaves of corruption. For one is a slave of whatever overcomes him. For if after they'd escaped the defilement of this world, so after we've escaped the defilement of this world, we're going to look back like Lot's wife. Through the knowledge of the Master and the Savior, Yeshua, they are again entangled in them and overcome. The latter end is worse for them than the first. So we must be careful that we will not fall, thinking we stand lest we fall. For it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than having known it to turn from the set apart command delivered unto them. For then the proverb has proved true. A dog returns to its vomit and washed so returns to a rolling in the mud. Amen. And the Father has given me a word today from this, which is in line with everything that He has spoken today. Because many of us are sick in our body, and many of us are sick. And many of us need to understand that the Father is now testing the heart. Not just testing our walk, but testing our hearts. And this is talking about the bitter waters that was made sweet. And it says Moses led onward from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. Exodus 15:22-26. And it says they went 3 days, 33 miles in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink its waters, for they were bitter. Therefore it was named Marah, bitterness. The people murmured against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" And he cried to Yahuwah, and Yahuwah showed him a tree, which he cast into the waters, and the waters were made sweet. There Yahuwah made them a statute and an ordinance, and he proved them, saying, "If you diligently hearken to the voice of Yahuwah, and will do what is right in his sight," you will do what is right in his sight, and will listen to and obey his commands, and keep his statutes, "I will put none of these diseases upon you, which was brought upon the Egyptians, for I am Yahuwah who heals you." My people's souls are like the bitter waters of Marah. Like my people who walked in the desert complaining and murmuring, being discontent with everything because of their pride. The bitterness of your soul keeps you from drinking of my spirit, because it is not a fruit of my spirit. Bitterness is a result of pride, and it poisons your soul. When you have a disease or an illness, you go to the doctor to get treated. But what about the disease in your soul that makes you physically sick as well? You have a soul disease of bitterness, unforgiveness, resentment, anger, hatred, and it binds your soul. It makes your soul sick, and your inner man becomes bitter and broken, and you build a wall around yourself in the process in order to protect yourself from more hurt. You try to treat the soul's diseases in ungodly ways, trying to make it better with remedies other than my solutions. A very important part of the Exodus journey is about soul healing. Because if there isn't healing in your soul from rejection, hurt, pain, etc., you will be unable to lay down the pride in your life, as the root of pride is hurt, rejection, resentment. The desert seasons are all about searching your heart. And I want you to put your hand on your heart and prayerfully ask me to reveal your hurt, your pain, your anger, your unforgiveness, because if you do not deal with these soul diseases, it can be deadly and can spiritually cut you off from me. It can also cause disease and eventually death in your physical body. Bring the bitter water of your life to me, because I can turn the bitter water into sweet water. The tree that I showed Moses to cast into the water to heal it was a type of tree that I hung on, that brought healing to all of your wounds, because I overcame unforgiveness for you through never being bitter against anyone or about anything. I forgave those who rejected me. I blessed those who cursed me. And therefore you have grace. Abide in my grace and my love, because through me, through my tree, you will be able to overcome the bitter water in your life. I will make it sweet, not by your own might, nor by your power, but by my ruach. Psalm 147:3 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, curing their pains and their sorrows. I want to heal your inner man, because without it, you are unable to enter the promised land of maturity, wholeness, fullness, and completeness. I desire wholeness in my people, because if the different parts of my body are broken, then my body will not be able to walk in my desired plan. I need wholeness within my people, and therefore I will take you through the wilderness to reveal your shattered soul areas to you, so that they can receive healing as you walk in obedience to my commands. Page 197, I think it is. Page 193. So, Abba, my Father, I just want to ask you, Father, I just want to come before your throne of grace, and Father, I thank you for your word, and I thank you for this Torah portion that we can see so many things in it that you are trying to speak to us in this hour. Father, we know that Abraham was a man that in his flesh made many wrong decisions. But I praise and I thank you, Father, that the more he continued to sit with you, the more he continued to seek your face, the more you continued to walk with him, there came a day when he finally was able to offer up Isaac on an altar. Abba, are we all willing to offer the Isaacs of our lives on altars, and especially the Isaac of our hearts? Because the heart is wicked above all things, and who knows it? You do. And Father, you wanting to come and heal the fragmented parts of our heart where we have been shattered in so many different areas in our hearts because of pain, because of rejection, because of hurt, because of things that have been done against us. We have a heart that is fragmented and shattered. And Father, you are now in this hour, men's hearts are failing them for fear. And because of fear, we will bow to the things of this world. And like Lot's wife, we will look back and we will not obey, and we will not go where you want us to go. Because we will still hold on to the things of this world, and we will fear the things of this world. But Father, I pray that we are in an hour now that you are testing us. You are weighing us as the scales are being weighed in this hour. You are weighing each and every one of us. And in many of our hearts, we are being found wanting. We might obey you in outward manifestations, but do we obey you in our inner manifestations? Do we obey you in our soul man? Do we obey you in our mind, in our will, in our emotions? Do we obey you in those areas? Because you are wanting a complete being. You are wanting a fullness. You say the highest form of worship is to obey me. And obedience comes not only just as we read now in James, not just that which we believe, but it's that which we're willing to put into practice. And Father, I pray that we are a people that have been found wanting in so many different areas, because if we look at our lives, Father, we are not where we should be. And I want to come before your throne of grace today, and I want to repent, Father. I want to repent on behalf of your body, Father, and I bring myself before you as one of those that has a fragmented heart myself, Father. And I want to ask you, Father, that while we find ourselves in our wilderness experiences, we are so busy trying to get the outside clean, but we are not getting the heart right. And that is more important to you, because you're wanting us to obey those two commands, to love you and to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And I just want to come before you, and I just want to repent, because if I look at where the body is right now, even those who pride themselves that they say that they know you, Father, they have pride in so many different other ways. And Father, I pray that you will just come and help us in this hour, because we do not want to be like Lot's wife. And we want to be able to be like Abraham, who's going to be able to offer our sacrifices no matter what it is. Offer our Isaacs on that altar. And we want to be able to bring you our broken hearts. We want to bring you our heart, and we want to ask you, Father, will you judge it? Will you judge our hearts? and reveal to us what is there that is still not pleasing to you. And so I ask you, Abba Father, that you will help us. And that is why we are in this hour now where you are sifting. You are going to separate the chaff from the wheat. And we are not to be found wanting. And we are not to be priding ourselves thinking that we stand lest we fall. Because there was Abraham. He had just met with you. He had just heard you. And yet he lied. And so, Abba, I ask you that we are so fragile. And we find ourselves in a time now where we become even more fragile. Because of the wickedness increasing around us. And because of the enemy that is so now prevalent in this world that we live in now. He is so prevalent everywhere we look, he's there. And he comes around like a roaring lion looking to whom he can devour. But I thank you that your word says, if we should humble ourselves, then we will resist him. So we are to humble ourselves under your mighty hand, and then we will resist him, and he will flee from us. Father, I ask you that you please come and help us. Father, I ask you that you please come and heal the areas in us that still needs to be healed, Father. Father, I weep on behalf of your people, Father. I weep on behalf of your people, Father. For where we find ourselves right now, because if I were to be able to stand and say, will you find 10 righteous, Father? I don't even know if you can find 10 either, Father. That's what just came to me this morning, Father. And so I ask you, Father, please will you have mercy? Please will you help us in this time? And I know that you are trying us. And I know that you are testing us. And I know that we are very much like the Israelites in the desert that will grow up, moan and complain about every little thing because we don't like it. Because our flesh doesn't want to bow its knee. Because our flesh doesn't want to humble. And we have made our own way. And we make our own golden calves. And we make our own idols. And we put things on altars that are idols that we shouldn't put, Father. And I ask you in this day to please forgive us, Father. And I ask you, Father, that as this world becomes wicked, help us to be able to lift up our eyes and know where our help comes from. Our help comes from you. And I ask you, Father, that we can be humble servants, just like an Abraham who was able to humble before you. And even though it was difficult in his flesh, and even though he continued stumbling and falling, Father, I pray that we will be able to, I think of even Peter in his arrogance that he was saying he will never deny you. And yet when the time came, he denied you 3 times. And that should be as warning for all of us. The same as with Moses, who stood before you and yet never entered into the promised land. And so I ask you, Father, that let us not judge ourselves in our right standing with you based on how you use us, Father. But may us be able to see ourselves, just as Abraham was able to see himself, that he still stumbled and fell, and yet you still used him. Yet you still used him. And he saw his mistakes, and he learned from those mistakes. And so I thank you, Abba Father, for giving us Yeshua, who has come to lead us by the hand, who's the one who's there to be able to lead us in this path that you have for us to walk in righteousness. And thank you for the Ruach, that you have given us the Ruach, your Ruach, Abba Father, who is our teacher, who is the one who's going to lead us and guide us and teach us and bring the word to our remembrance constantly. Help us to have hearts that are soft and pliable in your hand. That you are the potter, that we can be the clay, and that you will be able to come and mold our hearts to be able to be righteous before you, Father. In Yeshua's name I pray this, amen.